This main Marty Supreme typeface here is none other than Gill Sans. It's a notorious font. The creator of Gill Sans, Eric Gill, had sex with his dog. Hi, my name is Elliot Ulm. I'm a YouTuber, comedian, and graphic design enthusiast. I mainly do poster design, and my work likes to take the piss out of graphic design. I won't give any explanation for this. New South Wales will be Arial. Tasmania is Curls MT. The Northern Territory is Century Gothic. Western Australia is Gotham. Victoria is Futura Bold. It's Wes Anderson's font. The ACT is Apple Garamond. And Queensland is Comic Sans. Haha. And so is Jarvis Bay. Oh, South Australia. South Australia is Marker Feltz.
You happy?
I want a font with ugly values, but I can't. Well, do I have a font that represents that? The first thing that comes to mind is like Bleeding Cowboys. This is like the worst font of all, considered to be the worst font of all time. Impossible to work with, really like takes up too much space with not much to say. You know, some people get around it, but you hear them get around it and you're like, really? There's other fonts. What are you gonna use this for? They go, oh, that one specific thing that'll make my life better. I go, what about all the other things that this doesn't work for? Albanese's Bleeding Cowboys is worse.
It's called a joke. Humor.
No, I think every politician could be under Bleeding Cowboys potentially, you know. Myriad Pro for Albanese. This is the default font in Adobe sometimes. It's very standard, I think it promises you a lot, right? You open the program and you go like, oh, maybe this will change my life. Maybe, you know, like my rent will go down. And then like you realize like, oh, I'm gonna have to look elsewhere for that, I think. It's the safe pick for sure. And like probably better to use it than like another one, like a Bleeding Cowboys. But at the end of the day, it's not gonna really do everything you want it to. Bob Catter is... I'm gonna give Broadway to Bob Catter. There's a lot of personality involved in this one, right? It's a lot of vocal technique, and it leaves an impression on you. I don't know where I've seen it, but I have seen it somewhere. You might go overseas, and you'll show this font to them, they go, oh, of course, the crocodile video, right? Like that's... I know that one. Kevin Rudd, I'm gonna give to Cooper Black. Kevin Rudd was my childhood, right? I grew up knowing Kevin Rudd. I was like 8. And there's something about those times that seemed a lot simpler. I think this font, honestly, is like one that can get people into graphic design, kind of like a nice warmth to it. It's relatable, I feel. It plays handball, right? Like there's something nice about it. But like, you know, it is a bit overused. This is one of my favorite posters that have come out in a while. I think this one goes against a lot of the movie poster trends that we're seeing. If you've seen a poster for like any Marvel film, you know the floating heads concept, right? There's a bunch of heads that just show who's in it, and that is kind of enough to sell the film. I think the artistry that goes into movie posters has been dwindling a bit because of that, because you know, the goal is to get people into cinemas, and sometimes the artistry doesn't do that. Some might argue that this is a floating head poster with Mia Goth's head here, but I would say it's so much more to that. The head, we're drawn into the head here, right? Like that's the first thing we look at. We see this sweet face, hands on. We don't even notice the potentially blood stains on the hands. We don't see that at first. It comes after we see that subtle smile. And then after spending a bit more time with it, you start realizing you've got these like kind of lines down here that are kind of like pointing you towards this central image of this quite an intense barbaric scene, right, that we're witnessing here. And there's also some lovely like artistic traits to this. Like you've got this beautiful like acrylic kind of paint aesthetic going on here rather than just the normal photo. Very strict color palette, beautiful shade of gray here rather than just going for like a deep black that's got that kind of nice darker gray that gives it this real nice vintage feel. And look at that typography. Does it get much better than this, right? You've got the pearl with the blood kind of like trailing down into the L, and you've got it matching the perspective of the ground as well. Like your eye is really being drawn into this central element here. It's brilliant, it's brilliant. The face will draw you in, spend a bit of time with it, and you'll feel that mystery, you'll feel that intrigue. And I think that's what makes a good movie poster. I have very mixed thoughts about this poster specifically. I think the Marty Supreme art direction in general was really good. I loved what they were doing with the balls. I thought that was really fun. This isn't very fun. I don't know, there's a lot of praise to be made about good typography. It's something that I focus on exclusively in my posters as someone who can't really, you know, draw or make cool kind of artworks like this Pearl poster, for example. But what I can do is type. And what's interesting about this poster here, and what kind of sparked a debate in the design world, is that choice of font. This main Marty Supreme typeface here is none other than Gil Sans, which is a font that you might have seen if you had a Windows computer, I believe. I think it was like a default font installed on that. It's a notorious font. The creator of Gil Sans, Eric Gill, had sex with his dog. I'm pretty sure that's correct. There's much worse stuff. That's the main thing. He was a bad guy. But this font has kind of like a real bad vibe in the graphic design world if you find out like kind of what the go is with it is. So I was very surprised that they use it in this poster. Otherwise, I think the type elements are really nice. Like I love the tall font that they've gone with otherwise. Putting little Timmy Chalamet here in the base of the A is a very interesting choice. I think at this point you might as well stretch him, you know, like you just grab him. Watch this, everyone. Grab him and then just drag him up a little bit. And then I think maybe he's not that tall, but I think like the idea is there. And then if you want to get real crazy with it, like with the amount that we saw him, you really could just put the rest of the cast in the gaps as well. I think it's a perfectly fine poster. I think the goal, if we're looking at the purpose of the design, I think the goal of the marketing of this film was to get the word Marty Supreme into everyone's head. I think this does exactly that. I don't know. This font just doesn't do it for me. What's up with like the P here, you know, when it like curves in this way? It's an odd font. It's a really odd font that I personally can't get around. Completely subjective, but it's not for me. This is a perfect example of it, right? Minimalist on the left, maximalist on the right. It's pretty self-explanatory. Minimalist obviously using, kind of like stripping down all of the ideas and just kind of like confining it to one pure symbol, right? Minimalism is always like trying to get rid of any unnecessary elements and presenting it in its purest form. Maximalist poster, there's so much going on that I think nothing kind of pulls your eye, right? The whole thing pulls your eye, which is, to me, what I love most about maximalism. I love that you can kind of just be pulled in by this whole thing, and then what I love specifically about this poster, I think, is it gets you going to see the movie because there's so much going on that you want to be like, I want to know what this thing is about, but it rewards you for seeing it as well, right? You see it afterwards and you go, oh, of course, the fingers, the hot dog fingers. Now I see it all. It's not just like an element. Everything that you've seen is everywhere on this poster all at once. But this one on the right is a piece of art. That's an absolute, one of my favorite posters ever, I would say. I think it's completely perfect from top to bottom. And it's just so fun. And you see the movie and you go, of course that's the poster. That makes perfect sense. I'm shooting the Blu-ray version instantly. I think this 2-disc shake and shimmy edition. Really brutal job on this one. The silhouettes, they would have had the licensing rights to the faces. You would have thought they could have just put the people on it. You would hope, right? If this is the 2-disc shake and shimmy edition, but instead they've gone for that like minimalist outline that people hate now, right? Like, I mean, we might have loved it back in the day, but I think like it's pretty tough to look at. There's so much empty space for no reason, right? I think that's minimalism done wrong. There's so much going on in the Hairspray thing. Like there's the texture, the rainbow kind of gradient going over it. And then you've just got all this like empty space with this kind of like stock photo-esque background. It's not that nice to look at. It feels weird. I'm shooting that one. I love this musical theater version of it. I think it's so simple. I think this is a good example of minimalism done well, where there's still a bit of flair, right? Like that typography with like kind of that newspaper like collage style. It's fun. It takes it away from being like that like murderous intent to a very fun, lighthearted version of it, which I really like. Also in lowercase, kind of crazy choice, but I love it. The middle one it's a more fun version of a floating heads one. It's still like obviously there's a lot of stars in this movie, so you got to like show all the faces, get people going. People do this a lot with musicals, where they're afraid, I think, that people won't like be hooked immediately by just the title of a musical. You know, obviously reaching to a wider audience, you got to put some stars in, and I think that definitely worked. But I love like the accent colors they've chosen behind them all. I think there's a lot of fun there. I'm gonna marry the Broadway poster, I think, because I think that's quite like there's a lot of love behind it. I think this one would love me back in kind of like a long-term reciprocal relationship. I think I love it, and I think it would return that favor. It's quite beautiful, friendly, committed, I would say. It has a vision and it's committed to it, and I appreciate the commitment with it. And the middle one I'm going to root because all of us in the room, we'd have a great time. Every subject is a color. Everyone knows this. Everyone thinks it, everyone sees it in their head. English to me was always blue. It was always blue, no denying that in my head. Maths was purple, which I think is a controversial take. I think some people didn't really see it as purple, but I personally, yeah, very similar to that shade of blue actually. Science was red. Science has always been red to me, a nice like bold red. A lot of anger involved in science with me. Not that I didn't really like that at all. PE is tricky. I didn't do it for very long, so it wasn't really present in my mind that much. But I think if I remember, PE to me when I think about it is green, because green is the color of outside. And history is orange. History has always been orange to me. There's something about orange that I think is feels like an old textbook or something like that, like an old tome, I think. But yeah, this was definitive for me. Cyan, magenta, yellow, and can't fucking tell you, mate. No, it's key, actually. Key is the CMYK term for the color black. They are the 4 colors that are used to make printing happen, essentially. On the computer, we have RGB. If you got really close to the screen, you would notice that every kind of pixel on the screen, every little dot is made up out of a red, green, and blue, different shades of that combined. And when we use ink, we use CMYK. In fact, if you take like quite a colorful image in something like Photoshop, like this, right? We are currently in RGB mode, but in Photoshop, you can change to CMYK mode. Did you see how bad that was? Did you see how much the color changed saturation? Did you see that subtle change? That's the bane of my existence, right? As someone who's a digital-only designer who barely ever prints things out, I'm a big believer in just sticking with RGB. I think the colors shine the brightest, screens have an amazing way of boosting the saturation, and print just really mutes it all, and it's quite sad. But that's as much as we can do with the level of ink that we have on hand. I do this for a living. Okay, the first thing I'm thinking is we've got a lot of elements that we're working with. We've got subjects, we've got movie posters, we've got a stretched version of Timothy Chalamet. And if I'm gonna use every single one, then we're also gonna be playing with the term maximalism. Let's start with, we're gonna do movie posters, just the general kind of term for movie posters. Let's start with like a nice background. If we're gonna do this in like an Elliot style, the one thing I always do when I start is change the background to specifically hex code E9, E3, D3. It's my favorite shade of off-white. And I think it just makes like a good base kind of palette. We can probably play into the CMYK kind of thing as well. Let's do something like that. Okay, and we're only going to use the fonts that we used for each of the states. So we'll start with New South Wales. We're going to change this to like a nice Arial bold. Let's actually get brat with it, and let's change this to like an Arial narrow. Change the typography to like the kerning rather to like a -50. Boost that up. Graphic designers get stuck, I would say. It's just the thinking part. That's the fun part about graphic design, not thinking about what people say in the comments. Not thinking about how I'm gonna ask the ABC to turn off the ability to comment on this video if anyone says anything negative. So there were movie posters, specifically Pearl and Marty Supreme. So we can kind of like, we'll do this. We'll change this to a font that I like called Plaid. And there was also Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is important to include. All right, that kind of looks cool up there. But we should mention Eric Gill, the guy who had sex with his dog. No, I don't want to mention that. Let's do Futura, the font of Victoria. The whole thing can be graphic design, perhaps. Like, that's like our main thing. That's gonna be like the title. Everything else will kind of go around it. That looks scarily like Marty Supreme. I'm pretty sure it was Gill Sam. Keep it nice and centered. The vision I have is achievable in 2 hours, and I'm being tasked to do this in 10 minutes. What am I, working with a client? Okay, let's do the tried and trusted thing. We're just gonna add a stroke to this to make it look, I don't know, like better. But what we can do is maybe the bottom half can be maximalist and the top half can be minimalist. Hairspray, musicals. I'm gonna chuck that in there. And we're gonna shrink this down a little bit. Movie posters, musicals, and like, that's the thing. We're gonna make something out of this. So minimalism. That kind of will fit nicely there. We'll make this like a nice yellow. You know what? There's something here. There's something there. Maximalism. Yeah. We'll change this to let's change this to green. Let's get like the whole spectrum of color in here. To finish it, we're gonna do a geometric shape at the top here. Right. This is very minimalist. We're actually gonna finally do one more thing, and we're gonna list every single thing that we've done in one hit. There we go. I've been Elliot Ulm. Thank you all for watching and hearing me talk about graphic design, the love of my life. And I hope that you too will design again.